You ever notice how nobody actually lives in the scaffolding of a skyscraper?
Oh, yeah.
I
Correct.
mean, you walk past a massive construction site in the middle of a city, and the very first thing you see isn't the building itself. It's that enormous, intricate web of steel pipes, the wooden planks, all that green netting stretching hundreds of feet up.
Right. And it's a marvel of engineering all on its own.
Exactly. It's structurally sound. It's got all these little temporary staircases and safety rails. I mean, it takes millions of dollars and incredible planning just to put it up, but it is totally useless if no one ever builds the actual building.
Yeah, the scaffolding only exists to serve the building. It's entirely temporary. I mean, if that elaborate web of steel doesn't actually help the workers lay the bricks or pour the concrete, it's not just useless, it's actively in the way.
Right. It just becomes this like monument to itself, just this permanent cage. And that is exactly what I was thinking about when looking at this massive, dense stack of documents we have today.
Oh, for floor committee, too.
Yeah. International witness. So, welcome to the deep dive, by the way. Today, for you, whether you're a delegate, an alternate, or just an intensely curious listener getting ready for the convention, we are looking at the materials you're bringing to the floor.
And it is quite a stack.
It really is. We're talking about today's Business Issue 1, the Convention Workbook, and the Specific Amendment Guide for Committee 2. And let me tell you, flipping through this, it looks, quite frankly, like a lot of structural scaffolding.
Very dense.
Yeah.
Very parliamentary.
Yeah, bureaucratic even.
It is. And that can be incredibly intimidating when you first sit down with it.
Right.
But our mission for this deep dive is very clear. We're going to figure out how to use this parliamentary structure, this synodical scaffolding, to build the actual building.
Which, in the context of the church, is the kingdom.
Exactly. The kingdom.
Which brings us perfectly to the two core frameworks we need to establish right up front. These are the lenses we'll use to evaluate every single resolution we talk about today. So the first is a concept we are calling kingdom over castle.
That's right.
Now, I can guess what the kingdom is, but what exactly is the difference between the kingdom and the castle in this context? Because, a castle sounds pretty sturdy.
Well, it's a fundamental mindset shift when it comes to church governance.
Yeah.
So the Synod exists to serve congregations, missionaries, and the global harvest, right?
Right.
That is the kingdom.
Outward facing.
Right. The kingdom's the outward-facing proclamation of the gospel.
Yeah.
It's the planting of actual churches in the dirt, the administration of the sacraments to actual people. The castle, on the other hand, well, that represents the institution itself.
Ah, I see.
It's the bureaucracy, the centralized control, the insig for institutional self-preservation.
So protecting the brand, basically.
Precisely. Now, to be fair, some castle is necessary.
Sure, you need an HR department.
Yeah, you need administration, you need order, payroll, all of that. But when a church body starts spending more time polishing the scaffolding than laying the bricks of gospel witness when we start passing resolutions that just protect institutional power or centralize authority at the expense of local flexibility, we have totally lost the plot.
We're just admiring the scaffolding.
Yeah. Kingdom over castle means the institution serves the mission. The castle exists to supply the kingdom, never the other way around.
I love that distinction. If we are just adding more levels to the castle so people can sit in it and write reports to each other, we failed. Okay, so that's framework 1. The second framework we are bringing to this stack of resolutions is the concept of the 5 capitals.
That's 5 capitals.
Now, I have to push back a little here. When I hear the word capital, I instantly think of Wall Street.
Oh, sure.
I think of a hedge fund or, raising venture capital. It sounds very corporate for a church convention.
I completely understand that reaction. It definitely sounds corporate at first glance, but we have to reclaim that word because in the church, our resources, our capital, are far more diverse and profound than just dollars and cents.
So it's broader than money.
Much broader. A healthy church isn't just rich in money. It's rich in trust, in wisdom, in grace. So if we want to truly evaluate if a convention resolution is actually helpful for the mission field, we can't just ask, well, how much does it cost? We need to ask how it stewards these 5 specific capitals.
Okay, walk me through them.
Let's define them based on our source materials. First, and absolutely foremost, is spiritual capital.
Makes sense.
This is the core. Word, sacrament, prayer, catechesis, confession, and pastoral care. This is the beating heart of the church.
Right, because without spiritual capital, we're literally just a very well-organized nonprofit organization that happens to meet on Sunday.
Exactly. We could have all the money in the world, but without the gospel, we are bankrupt.
Wow. Yeah.
Second is relational capital. This is trust.
Trust between who?
Well, it's the strength of our missionary relationships on the field, for one. It's our partnerships with international church bodies, our connections with local leaders, and frankly, the fraternal bonds within our own districts back home.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Trust is a capital that takes decades to build and, honestly, seconds to destroy with a bad policy.
Yeah, you can't just buy a relationship with a partner church in South America. You have to invest time and trust over years. Okay, what's the third?
Third is physical capital. These are the tangible assets. We're talking about schools, mission sites, actual brick-and-mortar facilities.
Things you can touch.
Yeah, travel logistics, technology, the servers, the physical presence of workers on the field.
The plane tickets, the communion ware. Got it.
Yes. Fourth is intellectual capital. And this isn't just about being, like, academically smart.
Right.
In the mission field, intellectual capital means training, language acquisition, theological education, and cultural wisdom.
Yeah.
It's also having clear supervision structures. It is knowing how to do the mission faithfully in a very specific local context.
Like knowing that what works in a rural town in Nebraska might not work in downtown Tokyo, and having the wisdom to adapt without losing the theology.
Spot on. You have to know the context. And finally, the fifth is financial capital.
The actual money.
Right. This is the monetary support. It's the salaries for missionaries, the grants, the scholarships, the development of sustainable funding models, and the transparent stewardship of the gifts God's people have put in the offering plate.
Okay, so if I'm you, the delegate sitting there right now with a massive binder on your lap, what does this all mean for you as you prepare for the floor?
It means you have a job to do.
It means we aren't just going to blindly read these resolutions. We are going to apply these two lenses kingdom over castle and the 5 capitals directly to resolutions 201 through 205.
We have to evaluate them critically.
Yeah. We are going to equip you with the strategic analysis, the exact parliamentary phrases, and the conceptual tools you need to bring to the microphone. We are going to move from the theory of the scaffolding to the reality of the building.
Let's do it.
So let's dive right in. The very first item for Committee 2 is Resolution 201. It's titled, To Give Thanks for LCMS Ministry to the Armed Forces.
Okay.
Now, I read through the whereases and the resolves on this one, and honestly, under all the formal ecclesiastical language, this just looks like a giant thank you note.
It really does.
It gives thanks for the ministry to the Armed Forces, or MAF. It recognizes our long history of chaplains serving in conflict zones. It notes we have nearly 125 chaplains currently in the armed services providing word and sacrament ministry.
Which is incredible.
It really is. It commends this network called Operation Barnabas, which helps military families. And then it literally lists out specific leaders like the Reverend Craig Mueller and the Reverend Dr. Stephen Hokana to say thank you.
Right.
It's a nice resolution. Everyone loves the military. It's going to get unanimous applause. So why do we even need to talk about amending a thank you note?
Because unanimous applause that results in zero action is the ultimate castle trap. On its face, you are right. This is a wonderful, non-controversial resolution. It's actually listed in our sources as a likely candidate for the consent calendar, meaning it might just get voted on in a big block without any debate at all.
Just rubber stamped.
Exactly. But if we put our kingdom over castle glasses on, we have to look deeper. What is the main mission opportunity here? The real opportunity isn't just 1,000 delegates saying thank you from a microphone in a convention hall and feeling patriotic for 5 minutes. The mission opportunity is the chance to actually connect local military members, veterans, and their families to word and sacrament ministry in their specific local communities.
I see. If we just pass a resolution that says, good job, ministry to the armed forces, and then we all go back to our respective states and do nothing differently in our own local parishes, we haven't built the kingdom.
We've just polished the castle.
We gave a symbolic institutional pat on the back. It sounds lovely, it gets unanimous approval, but it requires absolutely zero local action.
Exactly. A resolution that only praises the national office without equipping or challenging the local congregation is a massive missed opportunity.
So how do we fix it?
This is where the suggested amendment from the amendment guide comes into play, and it's brilliant in its simplicity. The guide suggests adding language to explicitly encourage congregations to identify and care for military members locally. This is highly helpful because it shifts the locus of action from a distant Synod office building in St. Louis directly to the local parish level, where the actual veterans live.
Let's talk about the mechanics of that. Because right now, the resolution is just looking upward at the institution.
Yeah.
How do we pull it down to the dirt?
We use the right words.
Yeah, if I'm a delegate, what exact wording should I be looking to inject here?
The improved amendment wording that is completely delegate-ready goes like this. You would want to add a resolve that says, and I'm quoting here, resolved, that the Synod encourage its congregations to identify and care for current and former military members, veterans, chaplains, National Guard and Reserve members, and their families through prayer, pastoral care, local visitation, veteran support, and connection to available Synod and district resources.
That phrasing is incredibly intentional. Let's unpack the governance philosophy behind that, because I know you talk a lot about low control, high accountability.
Yes, all the time.
How does that specific sentence achieve that? Because to me, it kind of sounds like we are telling churches what to do.
It's a delicate balance, but it's a crucial one.
Yeah.
Low control means the Synod is not passing a heavy-handed bylaw, dictating exactly how a church must run a veterans program. It doesn't require a 12-step reporting process. It doesn't mandate that you buy a specific curriculum from the publishing house. It fundamentally respects the local context. I mean, think about the difference between a 50-person rural church in the Midwest and a 2,000-person church located right outside Naval Station Norfolk in Virginia.
Right. The church in Norfolk probably has 50 active-duty Navy families sitting in the pews. They might in a massive support group for spouses during deployments.
Exactly.
Whereas the rural church might only have 3 elderly Vietnam veterans and a grandson in the National Guard. If the Synod mandated a one-size-fits-all program, the rural church would fail instantly, and the Norfolk church would feel restricted.
You nailed it. That's why you use the word encourage to maintain low control. But it creates high accountability to the local community's needs by clearly outlining the expectation of care.
It lists the verbs.
Yes, prayer, pastoral care, local visitation. It holds the congregation accountable to the mission of finding these people and caring for them without micromanaging the methods.
And when we do that, when we push this down to the local level, we are releasing those 5 capitals we talked about earlier. Let's trace the causality here. How does adding a paragraph to a convention resolution actually release capital?
Let's walk through it. First, relational capital is released the very moment a congregation actually does the work of identifying the veterans in their specific neighborhood.
Because you can't care for someone if you don't know who they are.
Right. When a pastor or an elder sits down and realizes, hey, we have 6 veterans living within a mile of our church who are totally unconnected, you've just generated relational potential.
And then physical capital is released through local visitation. It's actually putting gas in the car, driving to the local VA hospital, or just unlocking the church basement on a Tuesday night to provide a safe, physical meeting space for a veterans group.
Yes. But most importantly, spiritual capital is released. Think about the moral injury of war, the PTSD, the profound grief that many veterans carry.
Yeah, that's heavy.
It is. And these require the specific absolution and comfort that only the gospel provides. Delivering direct pastoral care to wounded consciences is the ultimate release of spiritual capital.
So, to bring it back to the convention floor, if you are a delegate and you want to ensure this resolution does more than just gather dust in the synodical archives, you need to step to the microphone.
Yes, you do.
What is the strategy here? I mean, you don't want to give a 10-minute speech about your grandfather's service in Korea.
No, absolutely not. Please don't do that. The floor is about clarity and efficiency. You want a microphone-ready phrase to address the chairman. You simply say, and you can write this down, Mr. Chairman, I move to amend Resolution 201 by adding local congregational care language for military members, veterans, chaplains, and their families.
That's it.
That's it. You propose the specific text we outline, you give a 30-second rationale about equipping the local church, and you sit down.
Keep it short, keep it punchy, and before you even get to the microphone, because delegates don't operate in a vacuum, they sit at tables with their district, what is the strategic question you should be asking your peers in your delegation huddle?
So when 201 comes up for discussion at your table, just lean over and ask, does this resolution help our congregations actually care for military families locally, or does it only thank the ministry from a distance?
Oh, that's a great framing.
If the consensus is that it only does the latter, you know you need to advocate for the amendment.
That is incredibly practical. Okay, so we've established how to take a national level thank you note and turn it into a local mission mandate. Let's transition from the home front to the global front. We are zooming out.
Big picture time.
How do our local congregations fund and interact with the actual international mission field? This brings us to Resolution 202. It's titled, To Direct Districts and Encourage Congregational Participation in Global Mission Through Prayer, Partnership, and Support.
This one is incredibly important and has some real structural implications that delegates need to be wide awake for.
Weigh it out for us.
Let's start with the summary. Grounded heavily in the Great Commission. Matthew 28 is cited right at the top. This resolution is calling for synod-wide participation in international mission. And it specifically highlights a few existing operational models.
Like FRO.
Yes, the first is the FRO model. FRO is simply a Spanish word for forum. It represents a mission partnership network where a group of churches, individuals, and maybe a district come together to support a specific mission area or a specific missionary.
Okay.
And the text notes that these FRO partnerships have actually grown from 11 to 20 across the 4 international regions recently.
That's great growth. It means more people are getting involved directly. And what's the other model it mentions?
The NSM model, or Network-Supported Missionary Model. This is where congregations directly pledge financial support to a specific missionaries network rather than just sending undesignated funds to the national office and hoping for the best.
It's much more personal.
Right. Now, the resolution recognizes that despite this growth, a very large number of congregations remain totally unconnected to global mission. Often, this is because of perceived financial constraints.
They think they can't afford it.
Exactly. So the resolution attempts to solve this by doing 2 main things. Listen to these verbs. It directs districts to assess adopting 4RO mission partnerships, and it encourages congregations to support missionaries through the NSM model.
Okay, let's pause right there. I see a massive mission opportunity here, but I also see a giant red flag.
Oh, definitely.
The opportunity obviously is broadening participation. It's the chance to ensure that the global harvest isn't just the job of the national office or a few wealthy megachurches. The vision is that every single congregation, regardless of whether they have 40 people on a Sunday or 4,000, feels a tangible, real connection to international witness.
That is the kingdom vision, absolutely. That is what we want. But you mentioned a red flag. What is the risk of castle thinking here?
It hinges on that one specific verb you emphasized, direct. The resolution directs each district to assess adopting a partnership. The risk here is creating an unfunded mandate from the top down.
Yep.
If you treat global mission as a uniform quota that every district must meet in the exact same way, you are completely ignoring the vast differences in local capacity. Let's role play this. Imagine a district president in a heavily rural district.
Okay.
Half his churches are vacant, struggling to pay a part-time pastor, and now the convention directs his district to adopt an international 4-0 partnership. That doesn't feel like an invitation to the Great Commission.
Oh.
That feels like a tax levied by the castle.
It creates anxiety, guilt, and ultimately resentment. It's like telling a family that is barely scraping by that they are now mandated to adopt a child without first checking if they have an extra bedroom or the income to feed them.
Wow, yes.
It is structurally deaf to the local reality. And you know what happens. When districts feel mandated to do things they can't afford, they start cutting corners locally to appease the national mandate.
Which actually harms the mission in the long run. So how do we fix the mechanism of this resolution so that we encourage global mission without crushing the local district?
This is why the suggested amendment from the guide is so vital for this specific resolution. The amendment guide suggests adding what it calls capacity-sensitive language and periodic reporting.
Capacity-sensitive, I like that.
This is highly helpful because it fundamentally changes the psychological and structural dynamic. It protects smaller congregations and stretched districts from feeling like global mission is an impossible burden while still calling them to faithfulness.
Give me the actual wording. How do we rewrite the scaffolding here?
Here is the improved amendment wording you'd bring to the floor. Resolved, that districts and congregations be encouraged to participate in global mission partnerships in ways appropriate to their capacity and context, including prayer, missionary relationships, theological education support, and financial support. And be it further resolved that districts choosing to adopt or expand such partnerships provide periodic updates describing the spiritual, relational, physical, intellectual, and financial support being stewarded.
Let's break down the genius of that wording regarding low control and high accountability, because honestly, this is a masterclass in governance.
It really is.
By changing a hard directive into an encouragement appropriate to their capacity, you completely diffuse the anxiety. You maintain low control. You are respecting the autonomy and the realistic local context of the districts. You aren't forcing a square peg into a round hole.
Right.
If a rural district can only contribute $500 a year and a promise to pray for a missionary in Peru every Sunday, that is celebrated as faithful participation, not shamed as missing a quota.
Precisely. But notice the second half of the amendment. You don't just want low control. You need high accountability so the mission actually happens. By adding the requirement for periodic updates on the 5 capitals, you introduce that accountability.
They can't just check a box.
Now, if a district does adopt a partnership, they can't just wire a check once a year and forget about it. They have to report back on the actual relational and spiritual impact. What is the intellectual capital being shared? What are the physical needs?
It forces engagement. And speaking of the 5 capitals, this capacity-sensitive approach releases them beautifully. Let's trace it. Financial capital is released precisely because support is scaled to actual capacity.
When you don't demand thousands of dollars, people are often more willing to give what they can.
Exactly. Relational capital is built because the 4O model, by its very nature, encourages direct relationships. You aren't giving to a faceless bureaucracy. You are Skyping with the missionary in Peru. Your Sunday school kids are drawing pictures for their kids.
That's the relational glue that keeps mission work alive over decades. And spiritual capital is mobilized through corporate prayer for the harvest. As we said, if a church has 0 financial capital, they still possess infinite spiritual capital.
Committing to pray for a specific mission field by name every Sunday costs $0, but is the most powerful tool we have.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, delegate, when you are standing at the microphone and you want to save this resolution from becoming an unfunded mandate, here is your ready-to-go phrase. Mr. Chairman, I move to amend Resolution 202 by clarifying capacity-sensitive participation and adding periodic reporting on the 5 capitals being stewarded.
And in your delegation huddle, the question to ask your fellow delegates to get them thinking is this. Are our districts actually prepared to adopt and sustain these FORO partnerships without it feeling like a top-down mandate or an impossible financial quota?
Right.
If the answer is no, if your district leaders look panicked at the idea, you know you need that capacity-sensitive amendment to make this a reality.
Okay, this leads us to a fascinating and very serious transition. Let's say we are incredibly successful with Resolution 202.
We get the language right.
Yes, congregations step up, we fund all these FRO and NSM networks, and we send dozens of new missionaries out into the world. What happens when they actually get to the field? Because sending them is only step 1.
It's a huge step, but yeah.
The emotional, physical, and spiritual toll of cross-cultural mission work is immense. You're dealing with language barriers, isolation, hostile governments, and spiritual warfare. They need care. And that brings us to Resolution 203, to give thanks to God for missionary care provided by the Office of International Mission.
Okay.
This resolution deals with the human cost of the mission, and it involves a significant financial commitment, so delegates need to pay close attention to this one. The plain language summary is that this resolution is celebrating the Office of International Mission, or the OIM, for their comprehensive missionary care program.
And there's some good stats in there, right?
Truly impressive statistics. This care program has more than double the retention rate for the approximately 120 missionaries currently in the field.
Doubling retention. That is staggering.
It is a massive success. Keeping people on the field is notoriously difficult in international mission work across all denominations. So, the resolution rightly gives thanks for that success. But then, it adds a very significant directive for the future.
Here we go.
It directs the establishment of a full-time regional chaplaincy by the 2029 convention, and it explicitly notes an estimated cost of $800,000 to do this.
Wow. Okay, let's talk about the mission opportunity first before we get to that massive price tag. The opportunity is profound. It's about keeping physically, emotionally, and spiritually healthy missionaries on the field longer.
Yes.
Let's look at the mechanism of a missionary washing out. A family moves to a new country. They spend 2 years just learning the language and building basic trust with the locals. Just as they are ready to really start planting a church, they experience severe burnout.
It happens all the time.
Maybe the marriage is struggling under the stress, or they feel spiritually abandoned. If they wash out and come home after 2 years, it is personally devastating to them, and it drastically sets back the work of the church plant. A new missionary has to come in and start from scratch. Long-term, healthy presence is the only thing that leads to deep church planting and a stronger witness. So caring for the caretakers is excellent high-level kingdom strategy.
Absolutely. The theological premise is completely sound. But as delegates representing the stewardship of the church, anytime you see an $800,000 price tag attached to a resolution for new synodical staffing, the castle thinking alarms have to start ringing at full volume.
Oh, absolutely. Nearly $1 million for chaplains. That sounds like pure castle middle management. Convince me this isn't just an excuse to hire more bureaucrats and give them a religious title. What is the risk here?
But the risk is exactly what you just described. An $800,000 staffing addition could very easily become an expensive new middle management layer if the mechanics aren't perfectly structured.
That's so.
Well, without clear ironclad boundaries, a regional chaplain can accidentally become just another human resources supervisor. They fly in, visit the missionary, but instead of acting as a pastor, they're effectively conducting an employee evaluation and reporting back to the national office in St. Louis.
Yes. Let's role play this because the mechanism here is everything. Imagine a missionary who is struggling with deep depression, or maybe he has fallen into a specific sin out of isolation and despair. He needs a pastor.
Desperately.
He needs to confess under the strict seal of the confessional and hear the absolution. But if that regional chaplain arrives and the missionary knows or even suspects that the chaplain has a reporting line to the missionary's boss, the person who signs their paycheck and decides their placement, what is the missionary going to do?
He will lie. He will put on a brave face, say everything is fine, and hide the pain. He cannot risk his career or his family's livelihood by being honest with someone he views as HR. And because he hides it, he doesn't get the spiritual care he desperately needs. And then, 6 months later, he completely burns out or has a moral failure, and the mission is destroyed.
Pastoral care is entirely dependent on absolute trust and confidentiality. If it lacks confidentiality, it is not pastoral care. It is management. That is why the suggested amendment in the guide for this resolution is absolutely critical to justify that $800,000.
The guide suggests adding clear expectations for confidentiality, crisis response, and reporting. Without this amendment, the pastoral nature of the chaplaincy is dangerously compromised by institutional reporting lines. We have to fix the scaffolding to protect the missionaries.
Here is the improved amendment wording that a delegate needs to bring to the floor for 203. Resolved that the establishment of full-time regional missionary chaplaincy include clear expectations for pastoral care, confidentiality, family support, crisis response, field visitation, coordination with missionary supervisors, and annual reporting to the board for international mission on care provided, needs observed, and resources required while protecting private pastoral information.
That final phrase, while protecting private pastoral information, is the linchpin of the entire resolution.
It changes everything.
It does. That is how you perfectly balance low control with high accountability in a very sensitive context. The chaplains are held to high accountability because they must provide annual reports to the board. They have to justify the money by reporting on overall trends.
Like, we are seeing a 30% increase in stress related to visa issues.
Right. Or, we need more resources for missionary kids' education. They provide the aggregate data the institution needs to plan. But they maintain low control over the private souls of the missionaries by guaranteeing strict pastoral confidentiality. The institution gets the data, and the missionary gets a safe harbor.
It's a brilliant mechanism,
Yeah.
and it releases the capital so effectively. Financial capital is stewarded transparently. We know exactly what that funding is buying, and it's actually protecting our financial investment in these missionaries by keeping them on the field.
Exactly.
Spiritual capital is released because missionaries receive true confession, absolution, and actual pastoral care for wounded, burned-out consciences without fear of HR reprisal. And intellectual capital is applied as these chaplains bring specialized crisis response and cultural wisdom directly to the families on the field.
So, delegates, when the floor opens for 203, here is your microphone-ready phrase to ensure this money is spent on the kingdom, not the castle. Mr. Chairman, I move to amend Resolution 203 by adding clear expectations for regional missionary chaplaincy, confidentiality, family support, crisis response, field visitation, and annual reporting.
And in your huddle, the question is simple, but it is the most vital question you can ask. How will these regional chaplains be funded and integrated into current care structures without violating pastoral confidentiality? If the committee or the resolution didn't explicitly guarantee that privacy, you must vote to amend it.
Okay, let's keep moving. Taking care of our own LCMS missionaries is one thing. We send them, we fund them, we provide chaplains for them. They are ours.
Right.
But what happens when those missionaries interact with independent international congregations, say a small Lutheran church in Eastern Europe or Africa that isn't part of an existing LCMS partner church, but they want to be affiliated with us?
That's a tricky dynamic.
It is. How do we relate to them without turning them into a franchise or smothering them with our bureaucracy? That brings us to Resolution 204, to amend bylaws to establish a framework for ecclesiastical supervision and pastoral care for independent international congregations.
Okay, we need to pause here and emphasize something crucial for the delegates. This is arguably the most consequential resolution in this entire committee.
I agree completely.
Why? Because it involves permanent bylaw changes. Resolutions are often temporary directives or statements of thanks. Bylaws go into the synodical handbook. They are permanent, binding governance structures.
So the stakes are very high. What is the plain language summary of what these bylaw changes are trying to do?
This resolution amends multiple bylaws, specifically sections 1.7.3, 2.11.1, and a few others, to create a formal framework for how the LCMS provides ecclesiastical supervision and pastoral care to independent international congregations. As you said, these are churches overseas that want to maintain strict doctrinal unity with us and receive support, but they don't have a national church body of their own to belong to.
The main mission opportunity here is fantastic. It's about creating a clear, faithful, and predictable path for these independent churches abroad to walk with us. It allows them to maintain their doctrinal unity with the LCMS, which is what they want, and receive our support without being swallowed up by our American corporate structures. It's literally expanding the borders of the kingdom.
It is, but because we are dealing with bylaws, the risk of castle thinking here is immense and long-lasting. The danger is overbinding non-member congregations. If the bylaws are too complex, too rigid, or too vague regarding who actually has authority, we risk creating what we call a governance skyscraper without stairs.
Oh, I love that metaphor, but let's explore it deeply. What does a governance skyscraper without stairs look like in practice for an independent church?
It means you build this massive administrative structure, the skyscraper. It looks impressive on paper, but when you get inside, it's entirely unclear how anyone actually navigates it.
Give me an example.
Imagine a faithful, independent Lutheran congregation in Latvia. They want our theological support and pastoral supervision. They walk into the lobby of our LCMS skyscraper. But there are no stairs, and none of the elevator buttons are labeled. It is completely unclear who has the final authority to approve their application.
Right.
It's unclear which LCMS board supervises their local pastor. And worst of all, it's unclear what the process is for withdrawing from the arrangement if things go wrong. Do they have to appeal to the president of the synod, a regional director?
Yeah.
If they get trapped in a labyrinth of LCMS board approvals and overlapping jurisdictions, they will just leave. We will have suffocated the mission with our own scaffolding.
Exactly. It's like the old saying, good fences make good neighbors.
Yeah.
But a clear bylaw framework isn't about walling people out. It's about knowing exactly where the property line is so we can have a healthy, productive barbecue together without arguing over who is supposed to mow the lawn.
That is a perfect way to put it.
If the boundaries are vague, it just leads to jurisdictional conflict. We don't want to accidentally treat a sovereign church in Latvia like they are just another circuit in Nebraska subject to American administrative rules. We must respect their autonomy while guarding the doctrine.
So what does the guide suggest?
The amendment guide suggests refining the language to avoid this overbinding, to clarify authority, and to add reporting. Because bylaw changes are permanent, getting the mechanics right here is critical. We have to build stairs into the skyscraper.
So here is the improved amendment wording to ensure we do exactly that. Resolved, that the Board for International Mission provide written implementation guidelines before 2029 that clarify approval, supervision, doctrinal accountability, conflict resolution, communication expectations, and withdrawal of approval without overreaching into the autonomy of independent congregations.
This is the textbook definition of low control and high accountability applied to international relations. The LCMS maintains high accountability for doctrine. We aren't going to compromise on our confessional standards, and the framework ensures we only partner with churches that share our theology.
Which is non-negotiable.
Right. But it pairs that with low control over the day-to-day operations of the international congregation. We respect their independence and their local governance. We supervise the theology of the relationship without micromanaging their administration.
And the capital's release here are vital for long-term international witness. Intellectual capital is released through crystal clear doctrinal accountability and supervision clarity. Everyone knows the rules of the road. There's no confusion about who is responsible for what.
And relational capital.
Yes, relational capital is fiercely protected and released through mutual consultation and trust building. We are treating them as brothers in Christ, not as subsidiaries of an American religious corporation.
Delegate. Your microphone-ready phrase for this highly complex bylaw issue is this. Mr. Chairman, I move to amend Resolution 204 by requiring clear implementation guidelines that clarify supervision and reporting without overreaching into the autonomy of independent international congregations.
And your delegation huddle question, the one you use to focus your table on the real issue, is, does this framework make supervision understandable and timely, or does it inadvertently bind our international partners in unnecessary synodical red tape? If it looks like a skyscraper without stairs, you have to amend it.
All right, moving from the heavy structural boundaries of international bylaw supervision, let's look at the incredible, joyous fruit of that international witness over the decades. This brings us to the final resolution in our stack, Resolution 205, to give thanks for 125 years of gospel ministry in Latin America and the Caribbean, which is often abbreviated in the documents as the LAC region.
The plain language summary here is very straightforward. This is a classic anniversary resolution. It gives thanks to God for 125 years of LCMS mission work in Latin America and the Caribbean.
It looks back at the history.
Yeah, brave missionaries who went first, the partnerships that were formed, and the sheer grace of God in that region over more than a century.
And the main mission opportunity is right there in front of us. It's the opportunity to use a moment of historical celebration, not just as an end in itself, but as a springboard into future church planting and theological education in Spanish-speaking contexts. Anniversaries are great, but they are most useful when they propel you forward.
Because the risk of castle thinking here is falling into the trap of purely symbolic praise. The danger is treating the LAC region like a museum exhibit of our past glories, rather than a vibrant, ongoing harvest field that desperately needs our attention today.
Yes. It's the difference between staring at a dusty trophy in a glass case in the high school hallway versus getting back out on the practice field to prepare for the next game.
Exactly.
If we just pass a resolution that says, wow, 125 years, didn't we do a great job back then? We are just congratulating ourselves. Nostalgia does not fulfill the Great Commission.
Precisely. That is why the suggested amendment from the guide advises the convention to turn Thanksgiving into future mission action. We must advocate for this because thanking God for the past fundamentally requires us to trust Him with the future.
So let's give the delegates the wording to successfully pivot this resolution from the past to the future. Here is the improved amendment wording. Resolved that the Synod turn this Thanksgiving into future mission action by prioritizing ongoing prayer, strengthening partner relationships, supporting theological education, producing Spanish-language resources, and encouraging new church planting in the Latin America and Caribbean region.
Notice how that completely shifts the focus from looking backward to looking outward. It preserves low control by directing the Synod's attention and resources toward equipping local field action, things like translating resources and supporting local seminaries, rather than building up headquarters administration in the U.S.
The accountability is high.
Yes, because the goal isn't just a vague feeling of gratitude. The goal is actual, measurable mission work, new church plants, and trained pastors on the ground.
And it releases incredible capitals. Let's look at them. Intellectual capital is released by actively translating and producing Spanish-language resources and funding theological education for local pastors in the LAC region. You are transferring knowledge.
Physical capital is released by equipping those new church plants with what they need to actually gather and worship.
And relational capital is deepened by actively strengthening our ties with the local partner churches, treating them as co-workers in the current harvest, not just artifacts of our history.
Delegate, when 205 hits the floor, you can make it a much stronger, more vibrant resolution with this microphone-ready phrase. Mr. Chairman, I move to amend Resolution 205 by adding language that turns our Thanksgiving into specific future mission action through theological education and church planting.
And in your huddle, ask your peers, are we just thanking God for the past, or are we actively resourcing the Latin American church for the next 125 years?
Okay. We've walked through the mechanics, the pitfalls, and the amendments for all 5 resolutions for Committee 2. Let's take a breath and step back. We need to evaluate the key themes across this entire committee using the criteria from our source texts.
A rapid-fire synthesis.
Exactly. I'll toss you the questions based on the source guidelines. You give us the bottom line. First, do these resolutions as a whole strengthen international gospel witness?
Yes, they absolutely do, but conditionally. They only strengthen it if Resolution 202 is amended to be adapted to local capacity, so we don't crush small churches with mandates, and if Resolution 205 is amended to point toward future church planting rather than just past celebrations.
Good. Second, do they preserve clear Lutheran confession while allowing faithful local and international flexibility?
Yes. Resolution 204 provides that necessary, rigorous confessional framework for independent congregations, but the amendments we discussed are absolutely essential to protect the flexibility and administrative autonomy of those international partners so we don't micromanage them.
Third, do they support missionaries and their families with real pastoral care?
The intent in 203 is excellent, but again, it must include the confidentiality amendment. Without guaranteed privacy, it is not true pastoral care. It is merely HR oversight with a religious title, which will not prevent burnout.
Fourth, do they avoid symbolic praise without concrete next steps?
They do, provided the delegates adopt the amendments for 201 to ensure local veteran care and 205 to ensure future action in Latin America. Without the amendments, they are just polite applause.
And finally, do they keep Christ, the gospel, and word and sacrament central?
Yes. And I know you have a thought on this one because this really ties all the capitals together.
I do. When we talk about all these capitals, financial, intellectual, physical, we have to remember that word and sacrament is the beating heart of all of it. If we raise $1 million, build 10 buildings, and train 50 leaders, but we lose the pure preaching of the gospel and the right administration of the sacraments, we have built a beautiful, impressive castle that is spiritually entirely empty. The kingdom is built on the word.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most practical part of our deep dive today.
The delegate toolkit.
Yes. We want to give you, the listener who might actually be sitting on that convention floor, the strategic tools to take all this analysis and turn it into action. Let's start with a ranked list of the most important amendments to consider from Committee 2, based on the priority list in the guide.
Right. If you only have limited time at the microphone, where do you spend your capital?
Here is the countdown based on structural impact.
Okay.
Priority number 1 is absolutely Resolution 204, the bylaw framework for independent congregations. This is the highest priority because bylaw changes are permanent governance. If you get a resolution wrong, it lasts 3 years. If you get a bylaw wrong, you create structural pain that can last for decades.
So the implementation guidelines amendment is crucial here.
Absolutely. Priority number 2 is Resolution 203, missionary care. This is high priority due to the significant $800,000 annual cost and the incredibly delicate, vital nature of pastoral confidentiality for our missionaries. We have to get the care model right.
Okay, what's next?
Priority number 3 is Resolution 202, global mission. High priority because we must protect small congregations from feeling crushed by top-down mandates. The capacity-sensitive language is essential for synodical unity.
Number 4.
Priority number 4 is Resolution 205, the LAC mission. Medium priority. It's a great Thanksgiving resolution, but it needs the pivot to future mission action to be truly effective.
And lastly,
Priority number 5 is Resolution 2A01, the armed forces. Medium priority. It's good as is, but it becomes a great engine for local mission when you add the language to localize the veteran care to the congregational level.
that's a great strategic roadmap. Now, what about the unnecessary amendments? Because we've all seen conventions get bogged down. What should delegates avoid doing on the floor so they don't waste the convention's time?
Please, do not waste floor time nitpicking the exact names of the individuals thanked in 201. Don't go to the mic to add your uncle's name. And do not try to rewrite an entirely complete multi-paragraph substitute resolution from the floor microphone for a simple Thanksgiving item.
It's just chaotic.
Keep your amendments narrow, focused, and parliamentary. If you stand up and try to rewrite a whole page of text from the mic, no one can follow you, and you will lose the room immediately.
Excellent advice. To help with that, we want to give you a master amendment paragraph. This is a Swiss Army knife piece of text. You can adapt this exact wording and apply it to almost any resolution that seems to lack accountability or mission focus.
If a resolution looks like pure castle building, drop this in.
Ready. Here it is. Resolved, that implementation of this resolution be carried out in a manner that strengthens local and international gospel witness, honors appropriate ecclesiastical supervision, supports missionaries and partner churches, respects local contexts, and provides clear reporting before the 2029 Convention on partnerships strengthened, missionaries supported, congregations served, 5 capitals stewarded, and lessons learned.
That paragraph is absolute gold for a delegate. Let's look at why it works mechanically. It hits kingdom over castle by focusing on witness. It demands low control by explicitly stating it respects local context, and it demands high accountability by requiring a tangible report on the 5 capitals by the 2029 convention. It prevents any program from becoming a black box.
Okay, let's finish the toolkit with a quick delegate cheat sheet on floor etiquette. If you've never stood at the microphone in front of 1,000 people, or if you just need a refresher, here is how you do it effectively and persuasively. First, addressing the chairman. Always start with Mr. Chairman. It is formal, it is respectful, it sets the exact right tone of order.
Second, moving an amendment. Do not give a 5-minute preamble speech about your feelings and then say, "So I think we should change it."
Yes, get to the point.
State your business immediately so the chair knows what to do with you. Say, "Mr. Chairman, I move to amend Resolution X by adding," and then clearly read your text.
Third, speaking for your amendment. Once the chairman says, "You may speak to your motion," keep it focused on the why. Do not just reread the text you just read. Explain the mechanism. Explain how it protects local context, how it stewards the 5 capitals, or how it promotes kingdom over castle. Give them a 1-sentence concrete example, like the rural church trying to care for a veteran. Paint a picture of the impact.
Fourth, asking a question. If you aren't sure about the financial impact of a resolution or you need clarification on a bylaw, you can go to a question mic. Say, "Mr. Chairman, a question for the committee," and ask it plainly. Do not use a question mic to give a disguised passive-aggressive speech.
That is the worst. "Mr. Chairman, does the committee realize this is a terrible idea?" Don't do that.
Yeah, avoid that.
Fifth, revising or withdrawing. Be flexible. If you offer an amendment and the committee chairman says, "We agree with your premise, but could we tweak the wording to say X instead?" accept it. If they capture your intent, don't fight over a preposition. It's about the mission, not your ego.
And finally, the tone check. Keep your tone firm, fraternal, and useful. Do not campaign from the microphone. Do not assume the motives of the committee or the previous speaker. You are dealing with brothers and sisters in Christ who also want to see the gospel preached. Speak clearly, advocate for the kingdom, and be charitable.
That brings us to the end of our deep dive into Committee 2. As you pack your bags, as you review your workbook on the plane, and as you get ready to step onto that massive convention floor, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
The final reflection is this. The convention floor, with all its microphones, its complex rules of order, its intense debates, and its massive screens, that room is not the mission field. It is the supply line.
The supply.
Every single bylaw we argued about today, every budget estimate we scrutinized, and every resolution we debated amending only matters to the exact extent that it actually serves the harvest fields out in the world.
Right.
If the supply line gets choked up with bureaucracy, if the castle demands all the resources, the soldiers on the front lines, the missionaries in Latin America, the independent pastors in Eastern Europe, the local congregations caring for veterans, they starve. Our job at the convention is to keep the supply line flowing smoothly to the kingdom.
That is exactly right. The convention serves the risen Christ, it serves his church, and it serves the sending of his people into the nations. The Great Commission belongs to him, not to a floor committee, and he is faithful to accomplish it. So, use your cheat sheet. When the time comes, stand at that microphone with confidence. And remember, when you look at that massive stack of resolutions, you aren't just looking at the scaffolding. You are helping to build the kingdom. Keep kingdom over castle.